We're going to start talking about the 2020 palette now. So how would you sort of start to interpret that as a specifier?
So with the 2020 palette, most of the colours are quite strong. But what I'd like to try to do is help people to understand how well they can work when you mix it in with different colours and different materials. So this colour Aero, which as you can see is quite a strong colour, is one that I'm already working with on a project in Melbourne.
Fantastic.
Two houses. And I've used Aero in this project, and I've put it together with two colours from the neutral palette. So as you can see, all of these colours are represented in that project. So Aero, from being such a bright colour, has now been balanced out by the neutrals that we're using on this facade. And then if I keep going with the palette, and in fact if you could just pass me those materials,
Sure.
moving into the interiors of the house, because of course we design from the inside out.
Yes.
And there needs to be a cohesiveness in that approach. So you could imagine materials like stones, tiles that have a spot of colour in it which comes back to this colour but in a more subtle way. Picking up on the greyish colour in a textured tile with quite unusual shape. And then a material like this woven vinyl, which again is becoming quite prominent because just like Surround and Fibro Cement products, it's the new lighter materials, lightweight, flexible materials that are starting to dominate in the design and building industry now. So if I put all of these together, you'll see that I think it's still quite a neutral palette, even though, you know, this really strong colour is part of it. And then if you go on, and if I could just ask you, the palette then continues, and again, there's nothing confronting about it, but you start to introduce light colour timber flooring, another colour from the new palette, the use of going from this greeny blue into stone work, and then a new product that I'm working on, which is a blue timber engineered floor. So that theme, which starts on the outside, just continues to flow throughout. It may not be that obvious, but it's certainly there, and it certainly generates a lot of ideas about how the rest of the palette comes together.
The thing I like is, that we are forward thinking. So, we could pick a palette for here and now, but the fact that this product actually matches products that are starting to trend, I think is really important. We're not just looking at the now.
Well, these colours you will see more and more in, whether it's in buildings, in homewares, in fashion. So people become more accustomed to working with a colour like Aero.
There seems to be a bit of a lack of confidence sometimes when dealing with colour, and particularly once you start going bright. So the integration of a bright into that neutral palette works really well.
When I choose a palette of colours, certainly there are neutrals in that palette and there are brighter colours in that palette, but I don't make the distinction that neutrals just disappear. In fact, there are many ugly neutrals that I find quite confronting. So if we can even just stop thinking about colour in that way and just consider that there are elements in colour that will bring out perhaps beauty in other things, and consider each colour in isolation like that. And that's what the 2020 palette is all about. There's, we are designing cities that are predominantly grey, and yet we love the idea that nature inspires everything that we do. Well, can we see some of that in the buildings that we design and the environments that we create for people to live in?